Welcome into Locked On Knicks. Alex Wolf here. No Gavin today, but I have brought in a great guest for you guys. You might remember him as the previous host of Locked On Knicks. I have James Marceda on with me today to tackle some mailbag questions from you guys, including the Knicks media coverage. Is it fair? Were they right or wrong for their treatment of the Jalen Brunson event and things of that nature? Talk about some Donovan Mitchell rumors. Of course, what else? And some food takes. We got some food discussion in this too. Coming up next on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in the sights and sounds on YouTube. It's much appreciated that you make us a part of your day every single day, and we are very thankful for that. And I am Alex Wolf. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site The Strickland, which you can find at thestrick.land. And I am joined by the former host of Locked On Knicks, currently works for NBA 2K, which is why I am now the host of Locked On Knicks, the guy who helped get me this job. I'm always eternally grateful for that, and always eternally grateful to have him on. He's someone that is still a friend of mine to this day. I still talk to him a ton, and I'm always happy to bring him back on and give him a chance to catch up with you guys, the Locked On listeners, many of whom I'm sure were listening back when he is host. He is, of course, James Marceda, who you might know on Twitter these days as @TheIrishman. His fun little Twitter handle. But we have a really fun discussion today, starting to get into your July mailbag questions. So I won't hold this up any further. Let's get into the episode with James Marceda. All right, as promised, I'm joined by a very special guest returning for the first time in a while. We have the former host of Locked On Knicks, the guy who I have to give all the props for being nice enough to turn me on to hosting this podcast. The man, the myth, the legend, @TheIrishman on Twitter, James Marceda. James, how are you doing today, bud? It's been a long time coming to get you back on the podcast. Very excited to get into it today.
I am doing great. It is a pleasure to be here. It's a total nightmare to be on video for anyone who's watching on YouTube. I feel like I need to 8 Mile myself first before we keep going. So like no one can bring up the shit that I would make fun of. I'm as fat as I've ever been. My neck beard is like wildly. I haven't groomed it in like 2 or 3 weeks, and I haven't showered in like 4 days. So I think that covers it. I'm greasy. I've got like a backwards hat on, which is not for fashion, but is for keeping the hair out of my eyes. So I think that covers it.
All right. Yeah, your hair is much longer than the last time I saw you. It's been quite some time.
I have not cut it since the pandemic started. I had one trim.
Nice. Well,
I went from
it
a
shows,
high and
dude.
tight fade to a little bit.
It's long and glorious these days. Well, we're doing mailbag questions. We're into the July mailbag way later than usual. Normally, Gavin and I play the mailbag card the second a new month happens, but there's been enough to talk about with Summer League and all this stuff. We haven't had to play the card yet. But we have some great questions, some more specifically for you than other questions. And the first one comes from a good buddy of ours, currently going by Mick Lynch Stan account on Twitter @Jax365. Is it possible James can do his old opening line? If not, he's dead to me. I'm right there with Jax. You're dead to me too if you don't try to at least attempt to do your old opening line.
It's been a while. I haven't practiced it out loud, but I said it in my mind earlier. I was like, I think that's all the parts of it. But all right, here we go. And caveat, my daughter is sleeping 2 rooms over, so I'm not going to like scream it like I normally do.
That's fine. That saves me time in editing anyway. That saves me time in balancing audio, so it's good. You're good.
All right. All right, here we go. Welcome, everybody, to Locked On Knicks. I'm your former host, James Marceda. You may know me as NBA Injury Report on Twitter, and this is episode 69,420. On today's show, we are joined by the actual host, Alex Wolf, and me to answer your mailbag questions. Let's get to it.
All right, I give you good marks. You just didn't do the AKAs.
I did the AKA. I knew I was gonna forget something.
Yeah,
But the vibe was right. The vibe
was
100%.
good. Vibe check passed.
Yeah.
And I'll throw out what Provolone Ranger. That was always my favorite one. That one made me laugh the most. So we'll just go with that one.
Okay, good. I was gonna do Def Jam Gundy.
Oh, that was a good one too. Wasn't there a Fizdale one too? Just to date ourselves?
Probably. I had a lot, and then I got yelled at for imitating Jesus and Mero. Rest in peace.
Yeah,
which I was doing, but then I was like, all right, I don't need to do 30. I can do 1 or 2. And
you used to do at the end of every episode, take that for data too.
Yeah.
That was the Fizdale.
Take that. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, all right, let's get to a real Knicks question here. Although I did very much enjoy that rendition of the old intro. This comes to us from Adrian Chatham at Magic Age 683. Pretty this is sort of an evergreen question, but especially poignant today with all of the back and forth about whether the Knicks should have allowed reporters into the Jalen Brunson introduction or whatever. So Adrian wants to know, as fellow Knicks fans, is it frustrating how much the media flip-flops on their Knicks takes? If we don't draft and get picks, lol Knicks. Now, if we rush and throw everything at the wall for Spida, lol Knicks, they got fleeced. If we stay pat, lol Knicks, doesn't seem like we win. We try to move prudently and with purpose. Hurry up, make a splash. We make a move. Oh, the Knicks overpaid. What do you guys feel about this yo-yo type relationship with non-Knicks media? James, how are you feeling about the national and even to some degree local media about the Knicks as things have sort of hit that off-season low where people can get really upset about not going to a Jalen Brunson fan event?
Right. I mean, that whole thing is just ridiculous. It's as far as national media goes, like, I've been ignoring those guys for like a decade plus. Everything that Adrian Chatham says is true. It's very disingenuous. It's very lazy. The Knicks have been bad forever, so it's just like, oh, I can just make a joke about them being bad, and no matter what they do, it'll like probably work out that they'll f it up. Historically over the past 2 decades or whatever. I see it the most in our wonderful Discord, which I can't keep myself away from, but people are rightfully always annoyed at the stupidest takes that they see, and that's where I come up against it. And it's just like, I don't know, man. It's true that the media sucks. I don't really think there's anything we can do about it other than supporting, actually good media outlets such as Locked On Knicks and the Strickland. And I do think it's like, I don't know why I'm getting all serious about this because like nothing could matter less. But like it's bully mentality. Like they as long as you react to them, that's all they want. They don't give a shit, about like being correct or fair. And I'm talking obviously like generally speaking. There are good people in the media sprinkled here and there. But so if you just don't interact with them, like don't follow them, don't respond to their tweets, make fun of these people in our Discord, then that to me is the right way to approach things.
All right, I'll be right back in with James Marceda. We're going to finish this discussion on the New York media and the overall access and whether they need it for certain aspects, whether the Knicks were right for not inviting media to the Jalen Brunson event, things of that nature. And we're going to get into a food discussion, a once notorious food take by Gavin about a foreign substance that he's putting in the pasta water other than salt. So I'll revisit that with James in just a moment. But got to let you guys know today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar. From the people who invented healthy and tasty comes the latest gift to your taste buds. You've probably tried the amazing coconut brownie chunk Built Bar, but guess what? Your friends at Built have given coconut brownie chunk the Puffs treatment. That's right, the coconut brownie chunk Built Bar flavor you love in a deliciously chewy marshmallow covered in 100% real chocolate. It's like a fluffy cloud of coconut brownie goodness. But stop drooling and listen. They're good for you. Low calorie, low sugar, high protein, and they are all delicious. Coconut brownie chunk puffs are here for a limited time. Go to built.com now to make sure you don't miss out. They're going fast because they taste amazing. I can testify Coconut brownie chunk has long been one of my favorite flavors. Puffs are the textural taste sensation that you never thought you could get out of a protein bar. It really is like eating a chocolate covered marshmallow. In this case, you're eating a chocolate covered marshmallow that tastes like coconut with actual brownie chunks on top. It is amazing. I don't know how it's possibly not just a regular candy bar full of fat and sugar and everything else, but Built Bar does it. And I eat one before pretty much every workout now. And the best part about Built Puffs, of course, is that they taste amazing, but you can enjoy them guilt-free because they're actually good for you. They're the perfect treat when you've got a craving, when you need to satisfy your sweet tooth, or if you just need a quick, healthy snack. And they're a great source of protein, great for before or after your workout. I'm actually a huge proponent of taking a Built Bar before my workout to make sure my body has something to draw from while I'm working out. Pro tip. So if you want to get some for yourself, go to built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 and you can get 15% off your order. Again, use promo code LOCKED15 at built.com. Yeah, I'm kind of like, I'm of a similar mind. And you know, as it specifically, and I know this doesn't totally go with the question. I just thought this was a good way to introduce like the news of the day. But like, well, okay, I'll answer the actual question first. Yes, there is a double standard. Like, or a triple, quadruple, quintuple standard, you know, whatever standard it is that they need to say like, oh, the Knicks suck. Like that's the one they're going to go with. I feel like the bar is a little higher for the Knicks than other teams where like the Knicks have shown genuine improvement and genuine ability to make decent moves. And like, honestly, dating all the way back to even like Phil Jackson, they haven't made a rash, like draft pick decision type move, which is why it's like extra bizarre to me that everyone has suddenly decided like, oh, the Knicks are going to just like cave and give the Jazz like as many draft picks as humanly possible, plus all their young players for Donovan Mitchell, just because that's what the Knicks do. And they're, you know, losers that always give up draft picks. You know, it's like that hasn't happened in a long time. And, you know, even the last time they gave up like relatively significant draft capital was like the Melo trade, or maybe giving up any draft capital at all for Andrea Bargnani was obviously a mistake, but that's been like close to 10 years now, you know, or over 10 years in the case of the Melo deal. So like, you know, I think that there is this sort of can't win type thing with the Knicks in the media. And I think I think that has a big part to do with why we see things like the Brunson event. Mm-hmm. So I guess this is how I wrap this up in a bow and make it kind of full circle, right? Like
beautiful.
You sort of see this with the Brunson event where, you know, if it was under ordinary circumstances, I might be like, yeah, okay, I kind of get it. Like that, if I was a reporter, I would want to go there just to report on the event, talk to Brunson afterwards, see how excited he is to be a Knick and this, that, and the other. But the reality is that you can't necessarily trust some of the people that are on the beat, and especially like some of the national people that maybe would have been invited to something like that, to keep it focused and, you know, to not turn it into, oh, well, Jalen, there's rumors about Donovan Mitchell. How you feel about potentially playing with Donovan Mitchell? Oh, Jalen, when was the first time that Leon Rose called you about your contract? Right. Like, it's all just like gotchaism, you know? And that's, I think, what the Knicks generally try to avoid. Now, like, if the Knicks started saying, especially as far as like once the NBA lifts this restriction, you know, which they should this coming season, because they've had it in place for COVID, but I think it should be lifted universally this year. But like, if the Knicks start saying, okay, you're not allowed to talk to the coach after the game and you're not allowed to talk to the players ever, then that I understand, because there is journalism to be had. Like, you know, as much as he's sort of maligned among Knicks fans, I know, like Stephen Bondi actually said at one point this year, like Derrick Rose was wearing that like looked to be like hand knit Fez hat all year, and everybody was like, what the hell is the deal with this hat? And Bondi was like, this is where, you know, locker room journalism is useful, because myself or someone else could have gone up to Rose and been like, hey, what's the deal with that hat, and written a story about it, you know? And those are fun little quirky things that were robbed of
fun,
you know,
but not necessary for like the, you know, survival of our republic.
Exactly.
You know, that's the thing. People act like this isn't a First Amendment issue. Like that means they can't throw you in jail for publishing a story of facts. Like that's what it means. Or they can't like pass a law that you can't, you know, cover the Knicks. Like Congress can't do that. It doesn't mean that you have to be invited to like the launch of a new like soda flavor, which is basically what this is. Like this is publicity, these pressers. I know that the precedent is that, you know, the media goes there, But especially when you've been treated like, look, like, Dolan is so many things. We know all the bad things. Although, ironically, I think he's probably one of the least evil billionaire owners in the league, given that his just comes from like a cable empire that he didn't, do anything to actually build versus like deep state fuckery and all the crazy stuff that like True Hoop writes about, and like the Joe Size of the world. But that being said, like the Knicks, as we've been discussing, have been treated unfairly by the press and with double, triple, quadruple standards forever. So why should they expect to be invited to these things, which are, not even like, this isn't, if you want to do journalism, like beat the bushes, like call people, find them when they're going to their car or whatever. If you're really trying to do some like hard hitting shit, but when this guy's being introduced on his first day of the job, like I think that's personally a little rude to show up there with, all your questions about this, that, and the other. Like, say what you will about like tampering, which I think is just a joke, and they should get rid of all those laws or rules. But Jalen Brunson is someone who, you don't, especially someone like him who's not just, this preternatural athlete who can jump out of the gym, et cetera, et cetera. He's someone who all these guys are to different extents, but have worked his ass off for this moment. That's going to be one of the highlights of his life, of coming home to the Garden, in the prime of his career, and to want to use that to turn it into some sort of like, the Knicks, no one's as bad as them. Sorry, you can beef that one out. It's disingenuous, like so much of what these people say, to cry like this is how it all like goes to hell. Like, no, it's not. This is entertainment.
Yeah, and this kind of goes back to the spirit of the mailbag question too, in the sense of, no other team in the NBA is going to get a segment on ESPN about this, but the Knicks. This is like a Knicks exclusive thing that people complain this much about, like not being able to go to the introduction of a new player or whatever. And, ultimately the other thing too, and maybe this could be like one of the last points we go on this, because there's other things to talk about in this, but like the other thing is that a lot of these writers often frame it as, well, the fans should be the ones that are super upset about this because this is doing a disservice to you. Now I can't go there and get you the information that you want, except for then the Knicks stream the whole thing online, free for fans. They had Bill Pito there to like ask questions, and look, they asked questions to Jalen about how he feels about coming to the Knicks, why he came to the Knicks, et cetera, et cetera. Like those are fine questions to ask. And then on top of that, if you want to talk about like the fans and what's fair for the fans or not, they did invite season ticket holders who are fans to come and like ask him questions and hobnob with him and like come and get your picture taken with Jalen Brunson and talk to him and whatever. I mean, they did a pretty good job by the fans here, like if we're talking about, are the Knicks doing enough for the fans as far as what they're doing with these events? I think they did just fine, and
the fans who care the least about this lack of access are the same fans who don't ever get their questions asked by these guys, about like, because these guys, as much as they pretend that they're hard-hitting journalists, they play the access game like anyone else, and they tiptoe around things, and they don't really ask hard questions when they know things would make people like, Thibs uncomfortable. And so then when they don't ask, like, why aren't you playing the kids and that kind of stuff, or they don't ever push back with any kind of stats, and they're just like, pull shit. It's really hard for me not to curse right now. Pull stuff out of his butt. That's why people don't care, because they don't represent them, and then they get like the most online people who are the most plugged in, who are following the team the most closely, who know the most nuance about them, are the same people who are just not being serviced, if you will, by these journalists. And they can't understand, or I think they can understand, but it's their game. They're going to whine and act like they're being, thrown in the gulag because it might affect their bottom line. Like eventually they might become, the Post is like, well, if we aren't even allowed to go into these press conferences, what do we need you for? I think you might have even mentioned this somewhere. Maybe you don't want to be on record as saying this, but like they could be replaced by someone working remotely, making like way less money at some point. And I think that factors into their complaints way more than they'd ever admit publicly.
Yeah, and it's certainly a conversation that has a lot of different facets to it, and one that maybe we'll get into in another time. But I wanted to get to a couple other questions here. So I got one from our buddy Mikey Cooks at Mikey_Cooks on Twitter. And Mikey wants to know, how is the 2K franchise treated James? And if it's not good, does he need to take his talents to EA? So we want to talk about hard-hitting journalism. This is it right here. James Marceda.
They're great.
Writer for NBA 2K. James, how are you feeling? I'm sure that this is people that are longtime fans of the show would love to hear how you're doing anyway. So how are you doing in your personal life working for 2K these days? How's everything treating you in California and everything?
Working for 2K is like a dream come true, to be honest. They treat me well. The Bay Area is amazing. I am completely soft now as far as like weather goes. Like, I don't think I could handle like a summer or a winter anywhere else because it's just like 70 degrees year round here. Kids doing great. I don't know if everyone knows that I'm a dad, but they should. I'm even wearing, I think my hat, is this the dad hat? I forget which hat.
It is the dad hat. You are.
Nice. Yeah. Wore that to the hospital when Dylan was born. Shouts to Dylan, my baby girl. Fuck yeah. 2K for life. I cursed again, man.
Don't worry, I'm taking down timestamps, so you're not getting off the hook here. These will be bleeped for YouTube. To move to our next question, this is a little another deep cut here from Mikey. Mikey Cooks on Twitter. This is a little bit of a source of controversy, James. One of the last times you were on, which God seems forever ago at this point. We were talking about always salt in the pasta water, which was another one of your refrains from your time on Locked On Knicks. And Gavin mentioned that he puts garlic powder in his pasta water. I sort of scoffed at that and was like, "You put what in your pasta water?" And he was like, "No, it like flavors the water and it sort of it sticks to the pasta a little bit and it's good." You entertained this idea and you said you were going to try it. So Mikey wants to know, he said garlic salt, garlic powder, whatever you want to say, is a form of granulated garlic acceptable in pasta water, James? We need to know the answer.
I got a lot of guff for entertaining this. I was at,
still follows you around to this day.
It still follows me around to this day. When I heard it, my first thought was like, that's completely insane and don't ever talk to me again. But I was trying to be a better person. I still am. And so I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll try it. I never tried it. And the more I think about it, it's unacceptable, which was my first instinct because garlic, I only mess with fresh garlic. Like I don't even buy the like minced that comes in jars. And you can so easily just like saute a little garlic in some olive oil and throw that or in your sauce or whatever. Like garlic is such a staple of Italian cuisine that no, it's insane to put any kind of granulated garlic in the pasta water. I love Gavin, and if he enjoys it, good for him. But as a real Italian, I'm more than half, so I can say that. No, it's unacceptable.
Very, very brave of you to say that without him on this podcast right now. See, I just set you right up.
I know. Saying it on his back. But,
say that to Gavin's face next time, James.
If I'm back, I'll say it to his face.
This will never stop coming up, to be honest. I think we're going to, if Gavin and I are still doing this 5 years from now, we'll have you on. Your hair will
I want to know if Gavin still does it. That would be a good update. Like, has he grown up in his culinary adventure?
Is he grown up? It's just like the salt water, James. You got to create the brine, Anyway, all right.
I get like the theory makes sense. Like you salt the pasta water because pasta absorbs water while it's cooking, while it's boiling, and the salt gets in there and it salts the actual pasta. Like I get it. But again, the garlic can go in whatever sauce you're making. We don't need to absorb that into the pasta.
Let me real quick, one last pasta cooking technique that I've started doing because I saw it on a cooking show or something. Do you ever take a little splash of the salty pasta water and throw it in your sauce when you combine the pasta and the sauce and are mixing it up in the pan?
Yes. And one thing that I avoided for a long time because it adds a pan a lot of the time is finishing the pasta You take it out with some of the sauce if you make a lot of sauce, especially, right? You take some of the sauce out, you put the pasta in, and if you really want to be like, if it's just like a Tuesday night, fine, you don't have to do this shit. But if you want to be like the best, cursed again, sorry. If you don't want to, if you want to make the best pasta possible, you need to take it out like a minute or two before it's al dente and finish cooking it in the sauce with a little bit of that pasta water. And that way it also not only absorbs the salt from the water, but the pasta will absorb some of the sauce as well. If you think that's where like Gavin has gone astray, like you can have that fresh garlic in that sauce. You finish the pasta in the sauce. It gets the fresh garlic flavor, not the granulated garlic. Is good for like a mix if you're, smoking a meat or something like that. I'm not always against granulated garlic, but in this instance, finish it in the pan with the sauce. Like you said, a little splash of the pasta water, add a little bit of starch, and you're good to go.
Gavin has gone astray. You heard it here first. Also, I don't know why we don't have a cooking podcast together yet, James. One of these days.
Yeah.
We'll start one up for the Strickland or something. All right. I'm not going to lie. I don't understand this one at all. I assume that you understand it because it was in response to, maybe this is an Irishman reference or something. William F. Baldwin at William F. Baldwin on Twitter. James, this rash, it from you?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to need to see a pic of your rash, William.
There was no picture. There was no other explanation other than this.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't have any rashes.
I thought maybe you
I've got lots of medical problems, but no, I don't know what he's talking about. Well, sometimes people just try to be funny and they're not pros,
I would love some clarification from Mr. F. Baldwin here. We'll figure it out. Anyway, back to some more Knicksy type stuff.
The F stands for Fugazi. Fugazi.
For real or Fugazi? Yes, that's another great classic
Locked
On Knicks segment. Oh, man. Everybody go back and listen to all the old episodes when I used to be a guest calling in on terrible phone quality Skype or whatever, talking to James. Those were good episodes.
You sound great, by the way. Your setup is nice. I'm wondering how do you hear without headphones?
Earbud, buddy.
A little something in there.
Like a secret agent here. I got a little earbud in. Like you barely perceive it. It's plugged into my microphone, and
whatever you got. Your setup sounds really good, and is light years ahead of Ashwin's. And he should be ashamed of himself. We'll hash that out.
Anyway, we got enough inside baseball. We've got another question from DJ at ace_Zulo on Twitter. Should the Knicks trade for Donovan Mitchell? Does that increase or decrease your confidence in Thibs as the head coach? Would his presence elevate Mitchell's defense? As the once and maybe former greatest Thibs stan of all time, as it pertained to Thibs on the Knicks, I had to give you this question, James.
Yeah.
How do you feel about? I mean, this is honestly, it is an interesting question, right? Because I know that even you had sort of turned on the general Thibs of it all by the end of this season, despite formerly being like very much like Thibs is the man. And I think a lot of us did. And
just like in one sentence, my thing was that team 2 years ago, largely because of Randall, was successful beyond my wildest expectations, and I didn't understand it. So even when he did obviously dumb stuff like starting Elf, I was like, you know what? I don't understand this alchemy. Fine. Like that was, it wasn't like this is a good decision. I never thought that. I never thought starting Elf was a good decision. But I was like, maybe there's some weird thing that I have no idea about that for some reason this world, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
Anyway, that was more than one sentence. But.
That's the nuance of it all. However, I'm going to say that you fully supported the Elf decision, you bum. But I think that there is, there's some intrigue to this whole dynamic of what's going on with the Knicks right now, right? Because obviously Thibs had a bad season. I think that like a lot of what went wrong for the Knicks can be attributed to Thibs' decisions with the rotations and all that stuff throughout the season, playing Kemba Walker as long as he did, not utilizing Evan Fournier properly, like putting up with Randall playing how Randall did for so much of the year with no repercussions. There were like so many things that made you doubt Thibs. The front office is, they said at the end of the season, even though everybody wants to see Thibs gone, like the day after the season was over, they never explicitly said it, but it got out to the media like, no, we're going to go into next season with Thibs as the head coach. Okay, fine. And if that was the case and they kept the same roster and all that stuff, fine, okay. But now we're in a situation where it's looking like the Knicks are most likely going to add a Donovan Mitchell and at some point before the season starts. And you're going to have Mitchell, you're going to have the newly signed Jalen Brunson, you're going to have Hartenstein to give you a little different look at center, and maybe not have Julius Randle on the team anymore, which then begs the question, like, is Thibs going to – this team should be a lot better, maybe even than the 2021 season next year, if that's the case. And is Thibs
They'll
really –
have a better roster. I mean, the Randall's a huge variable, obviously, in how he performs, but
yeah. So, like,
overall.
How are you feeling about Thibs going into next season if he's given like a Donovan Mitchell? Do you think he can get the best out of him? Do you think it more comes down to like, will Johnny Bryant be able to get the most out of Donovan Mitchell being like one of his best buds?
Right.
Like where are you sitting with that right now as far as Thibs going into next season with potentially Mitchell on the team?
I mean, I don't think the way this question was phrased, it was, does it increase or decrease your confidence in Thibs? I don't think it changes it. Like, I think who he is who he is. I think, the better your team is, the better you look as a coach. Like, they're as good a coach as Phil Jackson was. I'm not sure how many people could have screwed up Michael Jordan's reign. Do you know what I mean? Like, and so the more talent you have, you're going to look better. I still sense that Thibs is not the coach if they ever are to get into serious championship contention where you've got to kind of make those more chess move playoff adjustments. We've seen him be very rigid. People can learn and grow. He's on the older end for coaches. So, anyone that gets a little harder the older you get. He's grown a little bit, but not quite as much as it was like, he recognizes that threes are important or whatever, but there's a lot of other things that he hasn't changed from early on in his coaching career. We could do a lot worse than Thibs. I think we could probably do better. I think that they ultimately kept him in sort of a self-preservation type move, because once you fire one coach, and then you're with that other guy. Whereas now, if something goes a little wrong, you can, get rid of him if they need to. I don't know if that's true. That's just my speculation. I wasn't admitted to the press conference today, so I wasn't able to ask, Jalen Brunson if he knows if Leon is looking to replace him. But, I won't – if the roster's shaping up the way it's looking like it's going to, and mostly at this point, I mean by getting rid of Julius. Julius is the one, enormous variable. If he's gone – then there'll be very few things I feel like he can do that will super annoy me next year, because so much was who he played, and he had so many people that are going to be gone next year that he was kind of leaning on when he should have been playing the young guys more. And so I think a lot of those decisions will sort of be taken out of his hands. I mean, if Donovan comes, and you never know with IQ, is he going to get 15 minutes? I don't think so. I think he'll get more. I think he'll get more in that 25-minute range. So that's where I am with Thibs. I don't necessarily think he's the guy to get you a championship once you're a real contender. For right now, I'm okay with it, and I'm especially okay with it if Randall's gone. If he's here, I still think there's going to be – you never know what the balance is between, this guy has a lot of talent, so I'm not going to give up on him and try to get stuff out of him, versus, organizational pressure to either recoup on an investment – by making him play well for your team, or by making him look good for a trade. So there's all kinds of stuff like that goes on behind the scenes that you'll never, get an on-the-record comment from Leon Rose about what's going on. You don't know exactly why all of the decisions are being made. But I just really hope Julius Randle is gone. That's my main thing with Thibs coming back as coach, because that's such a huge – that could really throw a wrench in things in so many ways. And play his worst instincts.
I think my biggest worry as it pertains to Thibs and as it relates to Randle is that, with Mitchell, Randle, for example, in 2021, we saw he can be a team player. He can play good defense individually and team defense. He has all that in him. But then this past year just kind of was like, I don't feel like doing those things. And right. Donovan Mitchell, it's sort of the same deal, right? We know that he has a good defender in him. That was actually sort of more his calling card coming out of college. And then, you just realized once he got in the league, oh crap, this guy can score 20 a game as a rookie. So, I think that I think when it comes down to it, like Mitchell isn't so different from Julius in that he sort of gave up on the Jazz in many ways. I think probably more than any person that's like a Jazz fan would want to admit, while they're currently trying to sell him to the Knicks for 8 first-round picks. But he was not defending to his top level for probably his last like 2, maybe 3 years there. And that's why Rudy Gobert was like really the anchor of that defense. Was that there was a lack of perimeter defense with like old Mike Conley and Donovan Mitchell. So like he needs to have buy-in on that end. I think there's maybe something to be said for like, as long as Thibs wouldn't be like, all right, Donovan, you're still going to be getting like 40% usage, like you were in Utah. So, buckle up, like, and we're going to have you be the engine of everything. I can't see that being the case with the newly signed Jalen Brunson, right? And RJ Barrett, who took on such a bigger role to end last year.
100%.
So yeah, I think there's a good chance that as long as Thibs or whatever coach is willing to say, all right, Donovan, let's get you down to like a reasonable 20 to 25% usage, and your efficiency will probably go up. Like life will be a lot easier for you, and you'll have really good teammates in the backcourt. But just play a little more defense, please, because we're going to take some stuff off your plate.
Yeah, Randall's the one glaring counterexample, but I do think that Thibs can get through to a lot of guys and get them playing really hard. And my gut tells me that he could get more out of Donovan Mitchell on the defensive end for sure.
I think he could especially do it. Yeah, he could especially do it year one with Mitchell too, because Mitchell's going to be like,
and the New York thing, he's not going to let me like thumbs down and like he's never going to go like. He'll dog it on defense sometimes, like I'm sure. Like no matter if he's better or not, like because that's just whatever. He's a supreme offensive talent. Those guys, like occasionally they take some plays off, whatever. But if he can take off way fewer than he did last year, I'll count that as a success.
Yeah, and I
think
then
Thibs could help him there. Yeah,
and you'll have this very like happy-go-lucky, want to try hard for New York backcourt then of Brunson, who like grew up on the MSG court. Like Mitchell, who grew up in New York, in the New York City area, and then RJ, who's become like maybe the best adopted child of New York City in like forever. I think they'll all have a good time, and there won't be any issues with trying to get them to like try hard for the city or whatever, especially in Donovan's first year. All right, that's it for this part with James Marceda. Hope you enjoyed the first part of our mailbag discussion. We will be back tomorrow to talk about some more stuff, including how the Knicks should prioritize their 2023 draft picks as far as trying to protect them in potential trade negotiations and stuff like that. And a very compelling discussion on some of your favorite handheld food items like hot dogs, burgers, tacos, and burritos. We rank those 4 and determine which one is the champion among those handheld foods. So that's all coming up next time on Locked On Knicks. But for today, thank you all for listening. We'll be back tomorrow with more discussion with James. Till next time, though, talk to you all soon. Peace out.